This is Matthew McConaughey,
Natalie Portman.
James Patterson,
Michael Ian Black,
and you are listening to
Five questions
with Dan Schawbel.
Jennette, welcome to Five Questions.
Thank you so much for having me. Excited to be here.
Can you describe the complicated relationship you had with your mom growing up that became the basis for your book with the book title, I'm Glad My Mom Died?
Yes, I had my mom on a pedestal and I thought she was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Pardon that very outdated saying. And I adored her and worshiped her and wanted to please her. And I was also very hypervigilant to her wants and needs, to the point that it was a detriment to my own wants and needs. And I couldn't really figure out my own identity until she passed away. She died when I was 21 of cancer. And then through a lot of therapy and really deep inner, ugly, uncomfortable inner work, I came to terms with the fact that she was very abusive and narcissistic and manipulative, and kind of reframed and understood for the first time what our relationship actually was. And that was the most difficult thing I've ever done.
It does obviously seem like a very unhealthy relationship. In one respect, she's kind of like pushing you to, get involved with acting at a really early age. But the other respect is she's going a little bit too hard on you, among other things. And that's really wasn't really good for your well-being and mental health.
Absolutely. She, as I see it, she really directly was responsible for me developing an eating disorder when I was 11. She taught me calorie restriction and really conditioned and supported my anorexia and other various eating disorders up until her death. That was sort of something that she aided and encouraged. And I thought she was just doing it to help me out. And I now recognize how warped that was.
And that's definitely the process of writing a book. I mean, I've written a few books, and you're really reflecting on your past, and you have so much time, and the book writing process could take, at least a year. And so you're really deciphering those things that happen in the moment. You might not have picked it up, especially because you were so young, but now, you've probably done research, talked to people, and really put the time in to really think it through and reflect. And you retired from acting at a really young age. What are your career plans after the book?
Yeah, I was 24 when I retired, and that was a really important decision to my kind of overall growth and health. And now I'm actually working on a novel and a collection of essays, and I've very much enjoyed that. And I love having two projects to work on at once because I have managed to avoid getting burnout on one. I'm curious if you have that same experience where if you're working on several, right?
Absolutely. Honestly, like I can't function unless I'm doing multiple things at once.
Yep.
Like this podcast is one of, 5 things that I do on a reoccurring basis because I never get burned out at anything, and it keeps life more interesting. Plus, it gives you breaks in between. If you're just doing one thing, it can get tiresome and you might not be as creative. But if you're working on other things, like they can inspire, like for instance, writing that book or novel.
I'm so glad you mentioned it because I so agree that the creativity sort of stays at a more peak place when there's various pans on the stove. That's not a saying.
Yeah. Well, the other way, like I've studied creativity, and I think a lot of the time we're creativity in conversation with other people, meaning like other people can bring out the creativity in us. In fact, a lot of my ideas for articles and books came from interviewing people. So my books, I've interviewed like over 100 people per book. And those conversations, and the conversations I had with the media, like you're doing now, and I'm sure you're going to be doing a lot more of that will push you in new directions as well, I found.
Yes. Do you find that with interviewing so many people, has it in any way gotten stale, or do you feel like, oh, you already know what people are going to say before they say it, and so it's become boring? Or do you find that people surprise you and continue to kind of, continue to surprise you?
I think it's more of connecting the dots. Like if you say something, I'm like, oh, I've heard that a bunch of times, so maybe I can respond this way because I think this is where she's going. So I think having all that data, having all those conversations can help improve not only interviews based on the experience that you have, but guide them as well because you've heard things before. So you can kind of, it's more relatable in that sense.
That's so interesting, and also such a specific part of your mind. It's like that really thinking on your feet, instinct, kind of piece of your mind that I admire. That I don't have that ability to really just kind of redirect things so effortlessly. So that's very cool.
So what parts, looking back at your career, what parts are you most proud of, and what would you change if you could go back in time?
Mm, definitely most proud of this book, hands down, far and away. Even doing press for this book has felt so different than any press that I've done in the past, because I used to feel very phony doing it, because I was having to, put on the smile and promote a thing that I didn't ultimately believe in or think or feel proud of. And now I'm able to talk to people and about something that I feel proud of, and I feel so much more connection in that. So that's been incredible. Definitely most proud of this book. And things that I wish I could change. Oof. You know,
It's tough because almost
yeah,
however you answer this,
yes,
all of what you've experienced that you might have changed led up to maybe a story in this book.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. I was thinking there, and it's like, it's so tough because I think of my career being put in acting when I was 6 years old as being so detrimental on my mental health, and something that I really had to do a lot of work to kind of excavate all of the damage that did, and to even kind of relearn what reality was separate from entertainment industry like that. There was just a lot of work that had to be done. But at the same time, I now look back on that as a really interesting part of my life, and something that I think, as specific as it was, I think there's a lot of universality to it, and a lot to explore there creatively. And so, yeah, I can't say I would change it now, and I can't believe that I'm at the point where I can say that I wouldn't change it, because there's definitely many years where I would have said I just want to undo all of my past.
Absolutely. But all of this has made you who you are, and which leads perfectly into this question is, all these hardships between the eating disorders, the addiction, the relationship with your mom, and how all that intertwined. How has that made you more resilient, strong, and a better person?
Mm. I think had the first thing that comes to mind is my mom's passing, and had she not died, I wouldn't have done maybe any of the processing or the therapeutic that work that I've done. And in many ways, I really don't think I would have been able to heal in any way from my relationship with her, which is why I am glad that she died. And I definitely kind of explain that more articulately in the book. But I think that all the challenges um, have really helped me to connect deeper with people, and to, I think, empathize more. Um,
It's like if I experience this, that I can relate to what other people have experienced as well, and they can relate to me. Just because I'm a child star, you know, other people, not everyone's famous, and people come from different backgrounds where they experience trauma and hardship. So you become more relatable, and you can empathize and connect with other people in new ways.
Absolutely. And I also think a lot of, I was such a I had so much sensitivity and sort of hypervigilance to my surroundings as a child. And I saw that as such a flaw for so long, and such a detriment. And I thought, I just want to cut this off, because this is the thing that makes me anxious socially. And this is the thing that sort of prevents me from being present. And this is, I just thought of it as such a weakness. And I now see it as actually a strength, and something I'm grateful for, because I think that sensitivity is also really a reason why I'm able to hopefully connect really deeply, and and live more, I guess, authentically.
What I think is that people who classify themselves or think that they're oversensitive, maybe, are the ones who probably care the most.
And I certainly feel that in all of my friends who would say that any of my friends who would say that they relate to me.
Definitely. And what's your best piece of career advice?
thought about this a lot. It's eyes on your paper. And I heard it from somebody who heard it a friend of a friend suggested it, and it's sort of become the advice for everybody in this friend group. It's a lot of writers, and I appreciate it because I think it applies not only to writing and work, but also just life. And for me, it represents keeping my eyes focused on my life and not falling into any sort of comparison trap, and appreciating what I have.
Which is even more difficult now because with social media and all the distractions, it's easy to veer off your own journey and to be influenced by other people. And I think that connects to your story that you talk about in the book. Like, you're kind of following your mom's path in a sense, whether you knew it or not. And now this next chapter, kind of an analogy, is you taking charge of your own life as you separate from your previous life, but kind of take some of those lessons learned with you.
Mm-hmm. That was so articulate. That was so well said. Oh my God.
Well, thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and for being on the show.
Thank you. I enjoyed this.